Straight Talk Sales and Marketing Podcast, episode number 4. Welcome to Straight Talk Sales and Marketing with Janet Clark. Are you ready for more sales, more clients, and more cash flow? This podcast brings you direct, honest conversations with sales and marketing masters each week. Now here is your host, Sales and Marketing Master, Janet Clark.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk Sales and Marketing with Janet Clark. I am the CEO and founder of The Freedom Shift, and you are in the right place if you are an entrepreneur and you want more clients. So today I have the privilege and the honor of interviewing a good friend and colleague of mine and also a mentor, George Kao. George is an authentic livelihood coach, and he has created a business with a loyal online following and been able to create this ideal work-life balance and also a very lucrative business. So I am really delighted to have George here with me today, and he is going to talk to you about marketing that is generous and effective. So I'm happy to say that George was one of my original mentors when I was starting my business, The Freedom Shift, and I really wanted to make sure that my business was on purpose and that it was fulfilling what I considered to be my true livelihood. So we had a great time working together last year, and I'm so happy to have you with us today, George.
Thanks, Janet. It's an honor to be here. And speaking of generous and effective marketing, I think a podcast is that example, and I just want to congratulate you on starting this. I think your audience is very lucky to be able to have your presence, have your insight and wisdom on a regular basis. So way to go.
Yeah, and let me also mention that George has a great podcast, which he does on a weekly basis, which is called Our Highest Work. So you can tell us about that too, George, as we're going forward here today.
Sure.
So why don't you tell us about marketing that is generous and effective?
Absolutely. So I think this is in alignment with what you share with your audience, which is that, what you say to your audience is that selling is not about trying to get people to do something for you, to pay you, but rather selling from one's heart, from a higher place, is about truly observing, understanding, and solving other people's problems. And whether sometimes those solutions are to buy your service or product, or sometimes the solution is to buy someone else's service or product that would meet the client's need better. And that's how I think about selling and how I think about marketing as well. So I guess the way I can frame the whole conversation today is to talk about two major concepts. One, I call it matching, and the other one I call visibility. So I really think about generous and effective marketing in that way. It's about simultaneously creating the right match between what your strengths and passions are, your talents are, what you have to give, what your assets are in your business, creating the match between that and what the market really wants and needs. Now, the reason I say needs second is because a lot of people think, well, I'm creating what the market needs, but they're not buying. Well, the problem when speaking about needs is oftentimes we assume we know what the market needs, and sometimes we do, but sometimes the market doesn't even know they need that, but they know what they want. And so that's what I mean when I say the first concept here is for effective marketing is to match, to continually be honing and refining the alignment between what your strengths and passions are and your assets and what the market wants. And there's the whole number of exercises that I teach about that we can talk about as much of it as you want. But let me go on to the next concept, the next major concept, which is about visibility. So at the same time that you're working on your match, which I think all of us should work on all the time, it's not something you do once in your business career. It's something that you do regularly. It's something that I do at least once a month, is to at least take, half an hour to assess, all right, how can I improve the match between what I've learned about my audience in the past month and what I want to provide to the world, So that the matching is one. The second one is visibility. Visibility is all the list of activities that we do to share our content generously with the world. And so this is, using social media. This may include blogging. This may include doing a podcast. This may include giving in-person talks at various local, centers. This may include, keeping in touch with your audience via an email list. So visibility is just as important as matching. But sometimes I think entrepreneurs find they're not being effective in their marketing because they're missing one or two of these. So I guess I'll just kind of frame that conversation there, and I welcome any and all questions that you have.
Yeah, so how do you actually determine what people want and need? Because, I know when I started out, it was a lot about what I thought people wanted. And, it's kind of a little bit challenging sometimes because my frame of reference might not be exactly the way that other people see things.
Yeah, no, this is a great question. So when it comes to matching, I think about, 3, maybe 4 actually general stages of matching. And the first stage, and the reason I say 3 or 4 is I'm actually literally in process right now. In these couple of weeks, I'm updating a huge mind map of these concepts. And later at the in the episode, if folks want, I can share with you the link to where to get that. But it's free, part of my visibility plan. But in terms of matching, really the first stage. So if someone is saying, I don't even know how to describe what I do, I really don't even, I have some ideas. The first stage really is having some conversations with friends. I say, just pick 3 friends and friends who are supportive of you, who are willing to give you half an hour of their time. And during that half hour, have them ask you questions about what you would love to do in terms of your business for other people. And have them take copious notes. And you could record the conversation too, on a Google Hangout like this, or on a Skype call, or use your phone to record, or have them take notes. And just to keep getting them to ask you questions. So what do you mean you do this? Okay, so well, who do you do it for? Like, what situation would someone be in that would need this kind of thing? And just have them keep asking you questions. And as you describe and answer their questions, as you stumble over your words at first, you will learn. And in the moment, ideas will come to you about how to describe it. And so that's a really good exercise I think people can do. Even just having 3 conversations like that will be enlightening. But you can have 5 or 10 of those conversations if you can. The other thing, the other part of this kind of first stage of matching is to look at what you already see as being available solutions in the market, and then you ask yourself, well, what do I provide that is how do I perceive them doing things that I think could be done better, basically, or could be done my way? I mean, they might be doing great, but if I were doing it, I would do it differently. And how would I do it differently? And write down those different ways, because as you write down, I would do this differently, I would do that differently, based on, some people call them competitors, and I like to call them niche mates, because hey, they are just people like you and I, who are also trying to build a business and who are trying to feed their families, So they're when I think of when people use the word competitors, they tend to feel some intimidation around that. They tend to feel some, there's phrases about crushing the competition and whatnot. We don't have to do that, but we can always learn from our niche mates. And so you observe their business, go to their website, check out their product, and say, well, how would I do it differently if I were doing it? And as you write down how you do it differently, you would naturally be taking into account your own strengths, your own passions, your own uniqueness, your own quirks, because that's what makes us unique. Our personalities, our experiences, our life experiences. So that's sort of the first stage of matching, is sort of having these conversations and looking at your niche mates. and seeing how you do it differently. The second stage is really to take it to the next level and starting to create an offer, starting to create a sales page. And a sales page is simply a web page that describes what your product or service is. And if you're having trouble creating that sales page, one of the exercises that I have my clients do is called the niche interview. And I have a whole blog post on that I wrote pretty recently on how to do the niche interview. And if there's interest, I can mention that at the end of the episode as well. In fact, I'll mention it now. People can find, if you just go to google.com and search how to do a niche interview, George Kao, my last name, K-A-O is my last name, you'll find it on Google. So doing a niche interview means having conversations with your prospective clients. Your prospective clients are people that you may already know, people who have the type of problem that your thing can probably solve. Or it could be people you know who could refer you to people like that. And having conversations with them and asking them, once you put a draft offer together, a draft service or product together, asking them, hey, am I getting it right? Does this meet what you really need? Is this something you would buy? And if not, please be brutally honest with me and tell me why you wouldn't buy it. Now, I'm not asking you to buy it. I'm just asking if you were to buy it, would you or wouldn't you? And if you wouldn't buy it, what would you want to see that would make you want to buy it? So that's the sort of second stage, is the offer solidification through these niche interviews and by creating this sales page. And the third stage of matching is to actually do a launch, to actually do some enrollment. Because I always say to my clients, you can only know to a certain extent whether people will buy your thing before you actually make the offer. There is no way. People often ask me, George, before I even put my offer out into the world, I want to be sure that people are going to buy it. Well, I will tell you, in my experience, it's impossible to know if people will actually buy it before you actually put it in front of them. And if they're looking at the sales page and the buy button is there, are they actually going to buy? And so that's why savvy entrepreneurs, Janet, like you and I teach people, is I call it paper airplane launches. When I think about launching things into the world to see if people are going to buy, I call it paper airplane launches, because the other end of the spectrum would be like having a baby. When you launch a paper airplane, it's a paper airplane. Hey, if it crashes, no big deal. You pick it back up and you tweak the wings a little bit, you tweak the nose of the paper airplane, just tweak the paper airplane a bit, and then try launching it again and see if it flies. No big deal, right? On the other end of the spectrum is like having a baby. When you have a baby, your whole life revolves around that baby. If people call your baby ugly, you're upset, or people don't love the baby as much as you do, you're like, how come? This is the most precious thing in the world. And that's the danger, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs get into, is they put so much time and effort, maybe years, into launching something that it's become like having a baby. And so when they put it into the world and people aren't buying at the rate that they had hoped, they get so discouraged and they get so depressed at it, and maybe they don't even launch again. And that's what I hope people don't experience. I hope people will, all of you listening, will from now on, think about your launches as paper airplanes. And so you're just putting it out because that's the only way you'll know. If you're not getting any feedback about no one's buying your thing, ask your audience, hey everyone, I just want to be honest with you. I put this offer out to see if it's really going to be a fit for you, and it looks like it's probably not the right fit. I would love your feedback on what about this offer wasn't the right fit for you, or how would you make it truly perfect for you. So let me just kind of stop there.
Yeah, well, I love so many things that you said, but one of the things that is interesting, about this whole paper airplane thing is I was sharing on a blog last week, a video blog that I was doing to my tribe about having some success after my first year in business and feeling really excited about that, at where we had gotten to. But I said, it was really a series of failing forward, because it's like you fall down, okay, that didn't work so good, but then all of a sudden something does work, and it's really just pick up and keep going. And that paper airplane just really resonates with me, because that's what you do, right? Oh, sometimes you throw it, it just flops on the ground, and other times like, whoa, that thing just took off.
It's exactly right. And the key difference between the paper airplane and having a baby, there's a lot of differences, but one of them is the paper airplane is not you. It's just a paper airplane. Yeah. It's not your flesh and blood. And that's what we need to look at our launches. Hey, you know what? If people respond poorly to it, it's not about me. It's not my worth as a person. It's not even about my worth in terms of my strengths and my passions and my business. No, it's just a launch. That's all it is. And I hope you all watching and listening to this, I hope you all launch at least several times a year. Personally, for me, I launch 4 times a year. Of course, I've gotten it down to a science. But when I was trying different things out, I would launch, every 2 months just to see if something will take with my audience. And the other thing I want to really say is it's really helpful to have other people who care about you, who are supportive of you, to give you feedback about your launch before the launch and after the launch and during the launch even. So, for example, hiring Janet as your coach, having a coach would be a great way to get support for your launch, and having a community of other entrepreneurs to get feedback about it. And because when you're around a community of other entrepreneurs and hopefully who have the idea of the paper airplane, they will cheer you on and say, hey, you know what? Launch again. If it didn't work, launch again. But sometimes it worked really well, and they'll want to know, hey, why do you think made it work so well? And you can all support each other. So that's what I really encourage people to do.
Yeah. So George, you have this interesting way of looking at your business and your life, which is, to assume that this is the last day of your life, the last week or year of your life, right? And so you kind of adopted this philosophy about generosity. And I think from when I first met you and followed you and different things that you were doing marketing online, to when I actually worked with you on True Livelihood, you had made some shifts in your approach to your business and your marketing and your sales and all of that. And I'd love to, number one, have you share with the audience what those changes were, and then to update me and everybody here as to how's that working out for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that question. So, 5 years ago, when I started my business, I was learning from mentors who, and I'm sure all of us have learned from these types of coaches and mentors that taught us that everything we do should make money. Every minute of our working day, we should be asking ourselves, how is this thing I'm doing productive in terms of how is it going to make me money? If I don't see how it's going to make me money, I'm not going to do it. I used to think that way, and I used to teach that, and I used to be selling all the time. Like, I got to be, every person who comes into my circle, every person who emails me, I'm going to think, how can I sell them on my thing? Because that's what's productive. And I, as a result of doing that, I will tell you, I did well for a couple of years. I made quite a lot of money, but the problem with that method is that it's not sustainable. And it also, the other problem in that method is that your conscience, I'll speak for myself. My conscience was always battling me. There was always something not quite right about what I was doing. Some people call this that they feel icky about selling. They feel icky about marketing. And I think the ickiness that we feel around these things is our conscience knocking at the door of our heart, saying, there's a better way. There really is a better way. There's a better way for you, and there's a better way for other people that you come in contact with. And I'm grateful to say that I feel like I found that better way. At least for me, I'll speak for myself. And for the people that I've taught it to, this seems to be a better way for them as well. And the better way, and this gets into the generosity aspect, is now, what people might expect me to say is that, just give everything away. Give all the content away, just help as many people as you can all the time. And that's the other end of the extreme. And I don't believe that extreme is sustainable either. In fact, a lot of people burn out. Bloggers, this is a good example. Even podcasters, right? Bloggers and podcasters are usually very generous people. They share so much information, so much wisdom, believing that, gosh, if I just share all this stuff, eventually my audience will find me and buy from me, etc. And then they answer emails all day long, and they just help out a lot of people. And I first of all, I would say if one is going to err on one side or the other, err on the side of generosity. Because when we err on the side of generosity, we build an audience that truly loves us and truly will like, or more likely buy something from us, or at least give us solid feedback when we do our launches. However, just on that side is not sustainable either. So I found a middle ground. And the middle ground is to be clear about our work-life balance and to come up with a business model where part of our working time we are giving generously for free without strings attached, and that's the key. Yep. Without thinking, well, everybody who listens to my podcast, everybody who reads my blog, I hope they buy from me at some point. It's not about that. It's truly about how can I help as many people as I possibly can without strings attached. I think of it as a karmic return. Now, I know for some of us, we have different spiritual backgrounds, and that term might not make sense, but I'll just say karmic return, let's use it in a more general sense, meaning you will find that when you love people and when you truly put goodness into the world with the intention that you're just trying to help, that will come back to you more than you gave, either in this lifetime or in a future one, if you believe in that. I do happen to believe in that. So I call it karmic return. The problem is that it's hard to see that in the current moment, right? So we just have to do our best to imagine it and to observe it when it does come back and to call it what it is. Oh, that was karmic return. See, I got the goodness from this person that I didn't even know, or, And so I was talking about a business model, and I will share a mind map with you all. Those of you who wanted to check out the mind map, you could just go to www.georgekao.com. That's my website. KAO is the last name. Georgekao.com. And if you opt in there, or you just go to my free stuff and look for my mind maps, and you'll find it. In my mind map is a business model where the way I do it is about 33% of my time is spent giving freely, and I do that through blogging. I do that through podcasting. I do that by creating a free and open Facebook group where I invite people to ask me questions and I answer them. But that's only 33% of my working time. So what does that mean? That means if I'm getting a question and it's the end of my workday, I don't keep working. I don't keep answering questions. I answer questions during a specific segment of my week, and that's important. And I be as generous as I can during that time. And then 33% of my work time I spend serving my clients, having client calls. That's how I make my money. And 33% of my working time is what I call business maintenance, and that's clearing my email inbox. That's planning my to-do list. That's going over my strategy, things like that. So I guess I'll end this concept of generosity by saying that in the 33% of my time, and I invite all of you to consider this, yours might be a different percentage, but mine is 33%. In that time of generosity and visibility, share as generously as you possibly can your content. Don't hold back and say, well, I'm only going to share the best stuff if people buy it. Now, this is I know, radical. Now, not everyone is quite here, because I know a lot of people listening to this podcast are still selling information products. My belief is that we are moving away into a world. We're moving into a world where information is less and less valuable on its own, and rather information should be used to build trust. And trust will always be valuable, because trust is where people in an overwhelmed world know where to turn for information and know where to turn for help. And if they turn to you for help, you will be able to help them, and if it's right for them, they will buy from you, or they will refer you when their friend is having a problem that you can help with. So in terms of the generosity and the visibility time, use use infinitely scalable methods to share your information. Infinitely scalable methods include YouTube.com. When you put your information on YouTube, it doesn't matter if one person views it or 1 million people view it. It doesn't cost you any more money. That's why it's infinitely scalable. And YouTube loves it because they love more people watching YouTube. Use Medium.com is what I use for blogging. Again, it doesn't cost you any more money for people to 1 million people to read it. Podcasting is not quite infinitely scalable because we do have to pay the podcast cost, but it's quite low. I use a service called Libsyn, Libsyn.com, and it's like $5 to $15 a month to have.
I use that too, so little plug to Libsyn.
Right, exactly. And the final one, I'll say infinitely scalable, is create a free and open Facebook group, and as many people join it as you want, and post on it. It doesn't cost you any money. So anyway, I'll stop there. I know I've talked for quite a while.
No, I love that. I love what you're doing. So then there was that little part of the question that I put in there in the end, which was, okay, we know when you had a more traditional selling mindset and it was a business mindset that you were very successful and you were running well over 6-figure a year business. Mm-hmm. And then you had a shift and you started saying it's not all about the money and I really want a purposeful life and whatever, but still you have to make a living. So I guess the question is, how's it working out for you?
Great question. So I'll say that right now, as of now, I've only been doing this new model for about 6 months. Wow. So it's still relatively new, but I'm grateful to say that because of all of my previous experience learning about matching and visibility, things like that, I was able to get up to speed. I mean, I was at a full-time income again within a few months of this new model. I would say within about 4 months I was at a full-time income again. Not as high, not as much money as I was making before. But see, this is the key. Even though I'm not making as much money as I was before, I am so much happier than I was before. I sleep better at night. I feel my heart feels so much more full because I know I'm giving without restraint. My relationships are so much more genuine with my audience. I've never gotten such heartfelt gratitude before from my audience. And so I'm sleeping better, I'm healthier, I have a more loyal and loving audience, and I'm making full-time income. Even though it's less money. So I'd say it's working out really well. Now, I do have to say that if someone is just starting out, it's probably not going to be 3 months and they have a full-time income. It might take them, I tell my clients, if you're really just starting out from zero and you don't have much experience at all with marketing, I'm going to say it's going to take about 9 months. Yeah. To create.
I think that's a good number. I mean, I think that's right, because I started as an entrepreneur. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur, but I was totally into a different space with this online work, and it took me probably 9 months to get to a point where I could say I could live on the business, and a year before I felt like I had hit that 6-figure level. But there's still investment in the business, right? So it's really it's a process to build a business. We know that. And for those who are just starting, and I know a lot of our audience is probably well out there, and maybe some of them are resonating a lot with what you're talking about. I got there. And I know what this is like, because this happened to me in my last business where I was making a great amount of money, and I was doing fine, but I was selling technology services to businesses. But at some point, it was like, is this it? I mean, I don't feel inspired by this. And that was contributing to not feeling happy in general. So, that's where I made the shift to get into this online business and work with entrepreneurs and help them with things that I do know about sales and marketing. But again, that's what attracted me to working with you, George, is because of your mindset around there's more to it than just getting to that, next level of money, if it's not satisfying.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant. It's not about, okay, now that I'm at 6 figures, I got to get to 7 figures and then 8 figures, and I see so many of my peers doing that, and I also know behind the scenes that they're not sleeping well at night, and that they're not happy truly about their life because they're working so darn hard, and they have to keep expanding their team because they have to keep getting to that next level of goal. Somehow they've been brainwashed that success is making more and more and more money, and I believe that success is actually making enough money, and actually I would say eventually over time learning, and this takes spiritual practice, to lessen our needs and to even lessen our wants, so that we are able to need less money to be happy. And it's really getting to the next level of work-life balance where, for example, right now I serve my clients about 13 hours a week. This is basically, you could say I make a full-time income on 13 hours a week. That's what and then again I have another about 13 to 15 hours a week doing free stuff like this, and then another 13 to 15 hours of business maintenance stuff, and breaks is built into that too. So I work less than most of my peers, a lot less, and I'm able to enjoy the love that I share with my audience. And I think what could be better? What could be better than that?
Yeah, I love it. So, in terms of just marketing, and I know you do a lot on Facebook.
Yeah.
And you had an email list, right, when you started this? I'm just trying to kind of get an idea of what your marketing strategy was, at the high level, so that you would actually be able to roll out this, these new coaching programs that you had.
Okay. Well, so I built my audience and my business for most of my 5 years. I did webinars and I did joint ventures. And what that means for those who don't know those terms is I simply contacted other peers who had audiences that I wanted to reach, and I did exclusive, video presentations for their audience. I say exclusive meaning I was there live. It wasn't a replay. It was actually that person, the host of the audience, interviewing me for their audience. And the difference between that and what I'm doing now today in this very one is that in that, the ones I used to do, the webinar wasn't really about giving great information. I mean, some of it was, but the webinar really was about framing my information in such a clever way such that they would be hungry by the end so that I could sell them my program. And so it was selling all the time, right? And that's why my conscience said there's something not quite right about this. Now, for example, in this one, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to literally, in the short time we have, give us the best information I could possibly give. And if people want to follow up with me afterward, get more of my free information, great. Because I can only work with 20 clients every 3 months. That's what I've limited down to. So like most people can't work with me anyway. And so it's great to be able to have that difference. Now, but I did build most of my list and audience using that. In the last 6 months, right now, the shift now is that now I'm no longer depending on webinars and email lists and joint ventures. Doing that actually was quite stressful because I was always looking for the perfect joint venture partner, and if they said yes to me, I maybe have to say yes to promoting them too, and there was always this tit for tat, and there was always this, well, gosh, I better sell well on the webinar, otherwise I can't give them much in commissions. So even though it worked well for a while, it was very stressful, and it's not something that I recommend as a default to people anymore. So what I do now is I use a multi-pronged strategy to build an audience. So I use a podcast. The way I do it is actually similar to what you're doing now, Janet, is I do a Google Hangout on air. I actually do it live, and I do it twice a week so that my audience knows, all right, every Tuesday and Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, George is doing his sharing of his information, and I do that, and then I turn that live video into an audio podcast that I upload on iTunes, and that gets many more listens. And so I have this video strategy, I have this podcast strategy, and then I also occasionally will turn the podcast content into a blog post on medium.com. And so I've got a video, audio, and text strategy. And there's a fourth one. The fourth one, well, I'll say 5, but the fourth one is my community strategy. So besides sharing great information, I built this open Facebook group where people are starting to, and it's still fairly new. It's about 3 months new at this point, and community takes time. It takes consistency, it takes care, and it takes time. So if those of you who are starting community just saying, hey, it's been 4 weeks and how come people aren't asking questions and engaging, it takes time. It's taking me about 3 months before people really started to engage, and now they are, and I'm really happy about it. And so I've created this as I mentioned before, Facebook open group. So that's my community strategy. And then the fifth strategy that I use is mind maps. Now mind maps is not for everyone. It's for the people who love to think in a more structured way. It really helps me to think. But one of my mind maps that I've created several now, one of my mind maps really caught on. It became viral. So a lot of people have been finding me through that. And so, and then the other strategy, of course, is that whenever people are open to it, I say, hey, I'm willing to give interviews to your audience where I share the best information I can, just like this one. And so you see now, I no longer depend on people reading my emails. Of course, I still email my list. About once a month, I email them my best social media posts of the past month. Maybe I'll do like 5 to 10 of them. But I no longer depend on that. I used to depend on that thinking, well, email is everything. I have to get people to opt in. No. Now, if I want to share something important, I can share it through my video channel, I can share it through my podcast, I can share it through my blog, blah, 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 blah. So you see how this is actually a more secure and stable and long-term strategy. And the great thing about this is because I'm giving my information as generously as I can, my audience actually trusts me because they subconsciously know I'm not just trying to sell them. They subconsciously know I'm actually trying to help them. So that makes a difference, and I have found that when I'm now launching things, it's much easier. I don't feel like I have to try as hard to sell people on something. I just say, hey, you know what? If this is the right fit for you, let me know, and if you have any questions, let me know. If not, let me know too. So anyway.
Well, we're running out of time, which is too bad because I could think of so many more questions that I'd love to ask you. So I guess I'll have to invite you back on again.
Happy to.
To sum it up, I love your energy and I feel it coming through both the audio and the video, which is great, and it is giving and generous, and I believe it's very effective. So, what final words would you like to say about, straight talk, sales and marketing, and being generous and effective with your marketing?
Yeah. No, thank you. So I guess my final point would be sometimes people hear the strategy I share and they think, well, if I give so generously, I won't have anything left to give in terms of information. Now, this is important. There are tangibles and there are intangibles. Tangibles are actually things like money, possessions, even our time is limited. When we give away our money, we don't magically have more money. We give away our possessions, we don't magically have more. We give away our time, we don't magically have more. But what's intangible is information and creativity. When we give away our creativity and information, we find magically that we have more. I have tried so hard to give all of my best information on my mind maps and videos and everything, and then I find that, oh my gosh, in the next month I have even better information. And that's what the brain does. When you give and teach and share generously, your brain says, great, I'm going to give you even more. And so that's what I hope I can leave with you all, is just don't be afraid to give of your creativity information. You'll find that you'll have even more to give.
That's awesome. So tell everybody again just how to get to your website so they can partake of this generosity.
Sure. So I give all my information there. Nowadays, I don't actually sell any more information. Everything's given away for free. And you can find that at www.georgekao.com. And George is how that's spelled, K-A-O, Georgekao.com. And I welcome you to check it out and contact me if you have any questions.
That's great, and I thank you so much for being here with us today, George, and I thank everybody who showed up here today to listen to us, and I invite you to head over to www.straighttalksalesandmarketing, where you will find our show page for the podcast, and you can pick up your free copy of my ebook, Sell from the Heart. I am Janet Clark, and I thank you for listening to Straight Talk Sales and Marketing. Tune in with us again next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Straight Talk Sales and Marketing. Now it's time for you to go out there and take action, to put some of this stuff into place in your business. So how are you going to use what George brought on this episode of the podcast and actually implement it in your business? What are you going to do? You can leave us a comment at straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/004 for episode number 4. And also be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, because that's how you know that you're getting each and every single episode delivered right to your phone. So you don't even have to worry about coming back to the website or tracking down when there's a new episode, because especially here in these first few weeks, we're going to be giving out multiple episodes of the podcast, and then eventually we'll be scaling down to one every single Monday. So be sure that you don't miss a single episode by subscribing by going to straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/podcast and just hitting the little subscribe button right there. And also be sure to enter our launch contest, because we have some great giveaways here from Janet that she is going to be offering to people who sign up for that launch contest. And you can find out all the details by going to straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/podcast launch. So now it's your turn. It's time for you to go out there, take action, and make the shift to your financial freedom today.